Welcome to Spaces Between, a podcast about bringing gamers closer together. I'm your host, Roy Kennedy, and today I have a very special guest, Jenn, also known as the Board Game Librarian. What's going on, Jenn?
Hey, Roy. It's so exciting to be on, and I'm just, really happy to be here. I'm glad it was a Monday night, and I was off today. I usually work until 9 p.m. on Monday evenings, and yes! Woohoo!
And I randomly picked the perfect day for you to be like, hey, I could actually be on.
Yes!
Even though I had to beg you to put down a book to come on the podcast, because you know how you librarians are.
I did. We're just,
always reading.
I had a turtleneck on earlier, and my husband was like, you better switch that out because you're just going to look like a walking stereotype, like a walking librarian stereotype. So
that would be awesome, like the Dewey Decimal System. You should just go on here, and every time someone talks to you, be like, shh, quiet in the library.
Shh, quiet, we're in the board game library. Shh.
No, this is not the ASMR podcast. This is the Spaces Between podcast.
Yeah,
no whispering into the microphones.
No, none of that. So what's happening, Roy?
Well, I just got back from a crazy Santa Park thing, which is a whole experience. But hey, we're not here to talk about Santa Parks. We're here to talk about learn more about you, Jenn, and what you do in board gaming. So I know you have a bunch of different content you do. You did Favorite Game Friday with me for forever. You do a lot of different segments on Board Game Breakfast. And you do your own content as well, covering. I know you've done panels and things like that for gaming and libraries and stuff. So you can tell us a little bit, anything else that I didn't cover, or just tell us what you do in board gaming overall.
So really, my big shot really came from you, Roy. And I said this to you.
No.
I know. Yes, it did. At least in board game media, I've been kind of chugging along on Instagram, doing my thing. And I reached out to you, and it'll be 3 years in January. It's crazy how quickly time has gone by.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And Favorite Game Friday is so awesome because it has such a dedicated crowd, too. And people who just every week are like, what's the topic? And they get really invested in all of us, too. But my goal has always been really to educate people on gaming and libraries and using social media as my platform. So from Favorite Game Friday, I went to Board Game Breakfast, creating some own content now. And I've been presenting on gaming and library topics for almost 3.5 years. I've done local ones, I've done a regional one, I've spoken at Gen Con a couple of times, and I'm a president of a national roundtable through American Library Association.
That's awesome.
So it is pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Yeah, that's just kind of, I don't know. I think when you're so passionate about something that you just want to share it with everyone, and you have to have no shame sometimes and just be willing to put yourself out there and really see the ultimate end goal too, which is just educating people on that libraries just aren't book repositories anymore.
That's awesome. And it's cool. Yeah. Like libraries bring people together to find books and learn about books, and board games bring people together to sit around a table and come face to face. I know a ton of your segments are comparing this book to this board game, or this board game based off this book. Is there any books you've discovered because of board games, or vice versa, board games you discovered because of a specific book?
Oh, my game of last year was The Reckoners. I don't know if you've gotten to play. You've gotten to play it yet. But I hadn't read the book series by Brandon Sanderson. And it's so rare that happens, where a board game introduces me to a book first. But and I really enjoyed that series. Another one was Dresden Files, where I got into Jim Butcher's books after playing the board game first. So again, that how they both can meld so nicely together has been great. And books for board games, oh gosh, I don't know. I try to keep a pretty open mind when it comes to playing different games and different varieties of stuff. So I'm always open to new opportunities.
I know you're just like me, and whenever you see a new Lord of the Rings game, you're just like, Lord of the Rings. Jen's always bugging me about playing War of the Ring. It's like, someday, maybe someday.
Every con, we should do like a live stream of it someday, and it'll just do it as a 2-player game, and
dress up like hobbits.
Yes, dress up like hobbits, although I'm way too tall for it to be a hobbit. I'll be like...
You can just be the Dark Lord. It'll be okay. You can be Sauron.
Okay. I'm cool. That's the side I normally play anyway. But when you and I had talked back in April for Epic Gaming Night, when I said that I hadn't finished Lord of the Rings books, you guys were like, oh my God! It's like the worst librarian story ever, right?
Yeah, for sure. Have you rectified the situation?
No, I have not rectified the situation. I know. It's still terrible. Someone had said on Instagram when I did Red Rising this past week with Terraforming Mars for Board Game Breakfast, someone was like, oh, for Terraforming Mars, I've got almost always gotten like an Ender's Game feeling to it. And I was like, I haven't read Ender's Game either. And the person was like, bad librarian, bad.
All these classics, like Ender's Game is pretty classic sci-fi, right?
It is pretty classic sci-fi, and I'm kind of like a newbie to sci-fi, which is terrible to say. I know, right?
There's so many books out there. How do librarians feel about like audiobooks and stuff like that?
Oh, I live and die by my audiobooks.
Nice.
Because I have a somewhat long commute to work every day. That's like how I get a lot of my reading in. And some people get really like, it's not reading, it's not, you're not actually reading a physical book. And I can be very sassy in real life too. And one day I just had it at a person, and I said, well, what do blind people do? Like, what are blind people supposed to do? If they don't know Braille, they listen to an audiobook. Like, are you going to tell them that they're not reading? So they didn't like that answer. They didn't like that answer. But, audiobooks too, it's like a live performance, and it's just like a whole different craft. And for people who are more like listening learners as they are opposed to visual learners, who cares? You're still ingesting a book and reading.
Well, I think audiobooks are really good for multitasking too, right? Like I could do something different and listen to an audiobook and things like that. Like I've actually the other day I listened to a Lovecraft audiobook while I was editing podcasts all day. I was like, oh, I'm going to listen to The Color Out of Space, and was just editing podcasts or editing like review videos while listening to an audiobook at the same time. So it's like you don't have to, reading is very much like you have to be paying attention to what you're doing with the book in front of you. An audiobook allows you to still do things with your hands and your eyes, and you can just use your ears to consume the media, I don't know. But reading, of course, is very important.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, you're never not going to hear me say that. I'd be, again, bad librarian.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They're making a movie out of Color Out of Space, aren't they?
I know. I just saw that. I posted it on my Facebook, and I was like, what? It's got Nicolas Cage. And I'm like, that's so hilarious. Like, what in the world is this going to be? It'll be interesting to see.
I think it'll be outrageous. My husband and I were talking about that last night, actually. Like, it's almost a perfect role for him because he's very outrageous, and it's kind of an outrageous, like, thing. Like, people who know Lovecraft, I don't know. So
yeah. I think that story's kind of weird because it's got a lot of, like, science-y stuff in it, and it's like, oh, this could kind of be a thing that happened. And then, of course, at the end, it just twists all super weird. But, I'm not going to spoil the story.
Oh, it does, yes.
It's very short, so, you could listen to the audiobook, and I think it's, like, 30 minutes or an hour. So, like, if an audiobook is 30 minutes or an hour, it's an extremely short story,
Yeah, it's not so bad. Yeah. So what else is new? What else is new with you, Roy?
For me, it's editing reviews and getting stuff up. Definitely lots of exciting stuff. PAX is just around the corner. We're about to do our 24-hour marathon for the Dice Tower, and that's going to be intense. I am excited because a bunch of contributors are contributing stuff to that as well. So I get to edit all that together too. So there'll be lots of exciting stuff coming up.
I need to get myself in gear for that. I've been talking about this forever. So if I say this live, I have to actually commit myself and do it, right, Roy? I'm gonna say it. I've been wanting to do like a top 10 list of games based on books
Yeah.
for forever.
Hmm.
So I've said it. Now I've got to do it.
Oh man, that list is pretty. I'm sure like the top like 5 would be like extremely easy to do. Then it'd be like, where do I fill out the other 5? You know?
Yeah, I feel like there's no like surprises with number one, but that's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, we can all just love our Lord of the Rings, and it'll just be great. Um, how are you feeling about Journeys in Middle Earth as opposed to War of the Ring?
I like Journeys to Middle Earth. That whole campaign thing makes it a little bit harder to like get back to the table over and over again. If you're gonna play it with a group, you have to play it with the same people. And I played it a bunch solo, and I haven't finished my campaign yet. I really should do that, but there's always things that coming up all the time. But I liked it a lot. I like the mechanics and I like the way it plays, and I really love Mansions of Madness, and it has that same sort of feel. So I need to play it more, is what I think.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I'm not getting like the epic scale that I feel with War of the Ring. Um, and I think we chose the wrong bunch of characters.
Oh, gotcha.
But we can
Yeah, it's
always go
definitely more
back.
about like going through the story and trying to solve little puzzles and things like that, and trying to figure out how to get through the story before the threat goes too high. Where War of the Ring is like giant armies clashing, and you're just trying to hold on because there's only a fool's hope left because the Dark Lord is crushing down upon you. And it's just like, holy smokes, this is intense.
It's
So War of the Rings,
happening! It's
yeah,
happening! It's happening!
yeah, yeah. So have you destroyed Matthew as the shadow player yet?
Oh boy. So I didn't grow up like a board gamer at all, and you and
Hmm.
I have had this conversation before. Um, I didn't grow up playing video games. I didn't grow up playing computer games.
Hmm.
I'm an only child. So when we got into modern board games back in 2010, it was like the Christmas right after we got married, and my
Yeah.
mom got us Battle Cry. So I have so much nostalgia and love for Battle Cry and all of the board games in general. Um,
And
so we
Battlecry's
went,
command and color system, right?
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. Um, Battle Cry is still like my favorite of the bunch. So we went from like Battle Cry to Mage Knight.
Oh, dag. Yeah, yeah. Mage Knight is
Oh
huge.
boy, to a couple of like FFG stuff, and then when War of the Ring got its reprint from Ares in 2012, maybe
Uh-huh.
that was like another one. So we've been doing like these big games, and I like just want to kill monsters. That's all I want to do in life is just roll some dice and kill some monsters. So I wasn't ready for it, and Matt will be like, "You were purposefully sabotaging playing this game." I'd get home from work; it was really bad. And he had me as a fellowship too, and that was like,
Oh, the
and
Fellowship is
trying
so
to
hard
teach,
to play.
oh, it like teaching a new player how to like War of the Ring and the Fellowship is like the worst thing. So I've stayed with the Shadow players. I've won once.
Hmm.
It came down to he was either going to drop the ring in and be victorious, or I was going to crush him, and it happened. And it was like a mic drop moment.
Yeah, yeah.
He was like, "How did you do that?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know. We can never play again. We're done."
I finally won. Let's hang
I
this up.
finally won. This is
All
it.
the other games didn't count. This one was for real.
This was the for real one. I've mastered it. We're done.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
shadow player. I mean, they have to work to make sure to get all those strongholds before the fellowship builds up too fast. But it's still like, as the fellowship, you just feel like you're playing Lord of the Ring. Like you're playing the books because there was not much hope. And when you're playing that game, it's like, oh man, nobody wants to help us out, and we're trying to
Yeah.
walk down to Mordor, and we're gonna get crushed. But that's pretty
Yeah.
much what happens anyway. So
It is.
it's good stuff.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I love games too, which like really have defied my expectations
Hmm.
in a lot of ways, and where like maybe my first experiences with them haven't been amazing. But over time, I've really grown to love them. Um, So that to me is like a classic example of one that's really gone from like an F to an A plus in my book.
That's crazy. A lot of people would be like, oh my goodness, Jenn plays these gigantic war games. Even if you told people you played Battlecry, they'd be like, oh my goodness, you're hardcore. You know, you started off on the deep end pretty much.
Yeah, and that's, I feel like a lot of people end up starting off in the deep end too. One of my most popular games that gets checked out at my library is Dominant Species.
Oh yeah, that's a heavy game.
Why? And like librarians are all about data, and we run reports, to see what gets checked out the most every month. And it's all, like Ticket to Ride, Splendor, Maze Racers, Takedo, Dominant Species. I don't know what it is about this game. I've never played it before, which is also blasphemy to some people. But I was convinced that for a while there, it was like little kids walking up to the shelf and pulling it off the shelf and going, "Oh, mommy, dinosaurs!"
Yeah.
And then they were getting it home and opening up the box cover and going,
and it's like, oh, cubes and cones and hex tiles.
Oh, yeah. So.
Yeah, that'd be a game that'd be awesome to like upgrade with little plastic spiders and lizards and stuff like that, as opposed to like the cubes that it has in it.
Yeah,
I played it once, and I was having a rough go at it because I was trying to figure out what exactly was going on. I was kind of distracted because I was running an event and playing Dominant Species, and it was like a 4-hour game of Dominant Species. Oh, and I was behind in the game the whole time. And the guy who owned the game, I finally had like caught up to where I was kind of like had a little bit of a chance. And he's like, and now I play this volcano right in the middle of your whole like civilization of like creatures, and all of your stuff's destroyed. And I'm just kind of like, I hope to never play this again.
In the 4 hours, you could have played TI4, right, Roy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, I can play TI4 in, like, a pretty short amount of time, especially because I think that was only a 4-player game. So it's like, doesn't even compare for me. I mean, I know a lot of people out there like Dominant Species, but, I mean, the guy who owned it was like, well, I wanted you to be like, he didn't even win. He wasn't even close to winning, but he messed me up. He's like, I wanted you to get beat so that way you'd want to come back and play it again. I'm like, that's not really how I work. Like,
yeah, something.
If I get crushed just out of, like, I wasn't winning, and then I was just barely coming back, and you're like, no, beat you back down. Oh, okay, cool. Ouch.
I guess that's somewhat thematic with like species and stuff.
I think I was playing spiders anyway. That was the whole problem. Like, spiders should have been crushed down, so it's okay. It's okay if the spiders lost, because we didn't want them to be the dominant species for sure.
Oh, no. That beats some people's worst nightmare, right? Oh, no. Jeez.
Mine.
Oh.
No. I'm not scared of spiders. I just don't enjoy them.
You don't want them creeping crawling on you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
So you've done a lot of like game demoing at cons as well, right?
Yeah, so our first Gen Con was demoing War of the Ring and Battle of Five Armies.
Wow.
And it was just, yeah, it was totally insane. I think we ended up teaching each of them, it was like 32 hours over the con. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and that was a lot, and we took a break. Not this past year, but the year before, I was at Plan B, which was like a super awesome experience. Loved working there.
A little bit less complex than War of the Ring.
Little less complex, which is probably good for me, since I can notoriously get rules wrong when I'm teaching something.
I've done demoing before, but I've never done demoing of a game as big as like War of the Ring. Like, where do you start? Because, I mean, you're not going to be able to play a whole game, really. You're just going to be able to show people the basics. Wow, that's got to be rough.
Yeah, it was more of, I think it was just kind of the basics and getting people going.
Just explaining the game to people, and then people being like, okay, cool. And then
cool.
Hopefully going and buying it.
Yeah, I feel confident in setting it up, which is also as long as demoing it and teaching it. And cool. Great. But I taught Reef last year. And I am still like the undisputed champion in my household of Reef. So I can't win Roar of the Ring, but I can win Reef a lot.
Yeah, Reef is an awesome little game. I feel like it's like, Azul came out and like everybody was talking about Azul like crazy, but like I feel like Reef was like an amazing game that like got swept under the rug, and it shouldn't have been because that game is super awesome.
Yeah, no, I think it is super awesome. And I love that it's completely like colorblind friendly and it's
Mm-hmm.
not language dependent. And in the community that I work in, we have a lot of different languages spoken.
Mm-hmm.
So that for me is like a really super easy sell. You could teach a 4-year-old how to play it, and you could teach like someone who's come over right from another country and doesn't
Mm-hmm.
speak English. So that's a really great opportunity there. And I like the Plan B slash next move slash Eggert Spiel
Mm-hmm.
um,
Slash
is
pretzel.
doing slash pretzel is doing that with a lot of their games.
That's awesome. So with the like bilingual stuff, is there a lot of like books from different languages in your library?
Um, we have a about 15% of the community I work in is Spanish speaking,
Mm-hmm.
so we have Spanish language books in our collection. We also have a pretty large Hindi and Bengali community where
Oh,
I work.
nice.
Um, so that's kind of where I'm looking to expand out to. Um, Again, it's just promoting literacy in
Mm-hmm.
whatever language people want to read in or practice in. So.
Yeah, I really wonder if there's like games that would be good, or like certain games that you could teach even if you don't speak the same language as like the person you're teaching. Like I wonder what would be a good game to like fit that like match. I know I played a Century Golem edition with my sister-in-law speaks like English good, but the rest of her family is very much, they all speak Spanish. And we taught them Century Golem edition, so it was very interesting. Like we were just pointing out the different colors and like, oh, this is Verde and this is Rosa and this is like, we knew the colors in Spanish, so we could say that. And then I was kind of like telling my sister-in-law like some of the rules, and then she would explain those rules in Spanish to her sister. So it was like a very interesting dynamic playing this game. It's mostly just about like, oh, exchange this color for that color and do this thing and get these points or whatever. But it was cool to play with people that spoke two different languages and some people that couldn't even necessarily communicate, playing the game together. And we all had like a lot of fun. I wonder if there's like specific games out there that you can really teach and just be like, point at this, point at that, and be like, okay, we do this, and like people can grasp it. It'd have to be some abstract stuff, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, stuff that doesn't have a lot of text on it too. Um, yeah, there's probably lists out there that would be awesome.
Yeah, my old job, I taught some of the guys to play Love Letter. There was a lot of the younger guys who know English and can read really well. But there were a lot of people there that like are very, Spanish is their first language. So I was like, man, I know what all these cards do. I should just like print out like or buy a Spanish copy of the game, and I just play with the cards in Spanish because I know what they do, and I can just be like, hey, here's this card, and then they could read it in Spanish. I don't know. I thought that would be like an interesting thing. I never ended up doing it, but I would have loved to have been like playing a game with Spanish cards and bringing people even when we don't necessarily speak the same language together. I think would be super cool.
Again, like you said before, board games really do that, and
Mm-hmm.
I've witnessed that a lot at the library in terms of not only just like people checking out games, but people coming together at board game group or family game night. I recently started one specifically for seniors
Mm-hmm.
to focus on a lot of classic games. I'd had a huge amount of requests from people, mostly seniors. I don't want to play those complicated strategy games,
Yeah.
and it was important to me to offer that space,
Mm-hmm.
and to have familiar things. Yeah, we ended up playing Parcheesi, which, oh boy, to each their own. And Racco was the other one that I ended up playing. But we had a game of Jaipur going and a game of Corkle going.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so yeah, just working with all different age groups and
Mm-hmm.
people across, like you were saying, different languages, different countries. Um, yeah.
That's kind of the dream, is like someday to have like a retirement home that's like the board gamer's retirement home. It's like, it's just a giant board game library. It's like a Dice Tower Con or something like that, where it's like the gaming never stops. It's just like you're always at the con. It's just like, oh, I mean, we just have like this giant room that's just full like with board games like all across the walls, and you can just all hobble in there every day of your retirement and play board games, and then go to lunch, and then come back and play more board games. It's like a board gaming con that never stops, you know. We need to make that happen. We need to make that happen while we're young, so that when we're old, we can all book into it.
Yeah, it would be like living the dream, right? Just you finally get to be able to play all of the games that have been sitting on our shelf of shame for forever. Yeah, I like that.
I was telling Tony and Marty they could be our first like guests, since they're up. No, I'm just kidding. They're probably gonna be like, Roy. No, I love those guys.
Fie on you, Roy. Fie.
That's what we need. Dice Tower Retirement Home. Let's do it. It'll be down here in Florida, so it'll be all nice and warm. You don't have to worry about the cold. Everybody wants to retire to Florida, right? That's how it works.
They do. All us Connecticut snowbirds end up down in Florida. That's a thing. Yeah.
Problem is, everything's so expensive down here, so be hard to have to find a retirement home that's like going out of business and be like, no, it's now the board game retirement home.
All right, well, you and I are going to work on that. Sounds like a plan.
Well, you got to get all your training in with your group there, your seniors group, and then you'll be ready to go. Yes.
I'll be able to catalog all the games, and it'll be wonderful. We'll curate the collection.
Everybody in chat has to let us know, or in the comments after this, let us know if you're going to be part of the board game retirement home. Everybody's like, yes.
Yes.
That's the dream.
Do it. It is.
Awesome. Well, are there any games that have come out this year? Anything that you've seen that you've been like, oh, that's amazing, I need to play that, or anything that you've really been digging on?
One of the ones that I've really loved this year came out at Gen Con. That's a good thing. I started to say something and totally... I had enjoyed, oh goodness, Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth was really good. I'm over there looking at my collection, seeing. I've been obsessed with Quacks. Oh my god,
yeah.
totally missed the boat on that last year.
Man, I at the Dice Tower Cruise, like, they kept checking out Quacks over and over again. So I knew the game was good. I knew the game was amazing. I went to multiple conventions, and everybody was always playing that game. I knew it was good, and I finally played it like last month for the first time with the expansion. I mean, it wasn't that hard with the expansion, but I'm like, this is like Dominion, but with little tokens, basically. And it was really fun. It's like press your luck also, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I like to, like, my philosophy is, like, I reach in the bag and I just, like, pull them out really fast, and then
if you pull them out fast, then they can't be bad, right?
Exactly. And I bust more times than is reasonably. My husband's always like, did you bust again? And it's like, yep. He says he thinks I have a philosophy too, that when I buy all of the new ingredients, that's why I keep busting, is because I really want to pull out the new ingredients that I just bought.
Yes. I feel the same way.
Putting them...
I've only played it once, but I was trying to, like, whenever I play like a deck building game or a bag building game, I always try to, like, figure out how to make the deck, like, cull it down and make it, like, super sleek and have only the best stuff in there. I feel in Quacks, since it's just like you just keep drawing, it's best to just, like, fill the bag with all sorts of stuff that's not bad stuff. And that was a philosophy that I didn't quite get a hold of, because I kept trying to, like, put really, really good expensive stuff in there, but then that made it so that there was still a lot of really bad stuff in there too. So it's like, yeah. I mean, sometimes I get really lucky, and majority of the time I just bust instead.
Yeah, I've tried both philosophies. I've tried having, like, a really sleek, and not buying a lot of stuff, and then I've just bought everything and thrown it in there. We also have gotten, which we haven't gotten the chance to play yet, was Clone Wars for Star Wars Legion. Um,
Oh, crazy.
yeah, I'm excited about that, and getting that to the table. My husband has been painting it, so yeah,
Have y'all
we have a
played much Star Wars Legion, or is this going to be your first like foray into it?
played it before. He did like I forget how many points it was. We were playing
Uh-huh.
it for 6 hours, and after the end,
Wow.
it's like, oh man, it was just. And yeah, at that point, I could have been playing TI4, right, Roy? I could have had an
You
epic
could
game of
have totally.
TI4. Um, yeah, yeah, no, we have Legion. I'm excited though because I'm a big Clone Wars fan.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and as soon as they come out with an Ahsoka Tano commander, that's gonna be it. That's all I'll
What
be playing.
what about the
Uh,
Jar Jar model? Are they going to have that?
Probably
Misa
that'll
painting
be.
Jar Jar. No, don't do it. I think the miniatures for that looked really good. Like that General Grievous with like all the lightsabers and stuff looked amazing. I've never really gotten into Legion, but I'm like, I would at least like to know how to play it. But it looks cool. And any miniatures games are such a task and so expensive to get into, but they're really cool when you get to play them and put them all out on the table, especially when they're painted up.
Yeah, and my husband has the patience to paint them up. Like
Hmm.
something that small, I don't, bless his heart, I don't have the patience to
Hmm.
do that. Um, but yeah, when Legion first came out, he had one group of stormtroopers that was orange, and I asked for a set of pink stormtroopers, and I
That's
I
awesome.
asked and I received, again, probably blasphemy to real hardcore people, but eh, you know. I have also loved Abomination. I have
Oh, nice.
loved trying to think what else. Oh, Power Rangers. Did you play Power Rangers yet?
I haven't actually played it. I have a copy of it that I've been working on painting up, but I haven't actually got a chance to play it yet. So
Um, yeah, and you and I are like of the same age too. I don't know if you were a Power Rangers fan as a child.
it's kind of funny because like I watched Power Rangers. Like we would watch Power Rangers, me and my brother, and immediately as soon as we turned it off, we'd start like pretending like we're Power Rangers and start beating each other up. So my mom and dad didn't like that, so they told us we weren't allowed to watch Power Rangers anymore because we would just start punching each other as soon as the show was
Oh
over.
no.
They like have my brother in a headlock and be like, "No, I'm the Red Ranger." I don't think that's really how Power Rangers works. I mean, we were young. It's fine. But
Go go Power Rangers.
go beat up your siblings. No, just kidding.
Yeah, I think it's pretty solid. Pretty easy play, which I really liked. The
Hmm.
miniature quality is super good. Um, yeah, a lot of different modules. Yeah, I've
And it's
enjoyed that one a
cooperative,
lot.
right?
And it's cooperative too. Yeah. I guess it'd be a really bad Power Rangers game if it was not cooperative. You're
I
playing
guess it could
co-op.
be one versus all. One person could play like the evil Rita or whatever, turning all the monsters big and then trying to crush the other players. Who
Oh,
knows?
so have you heard the story about it might have been the guy who did the art for Power Rangers. Um, when Renegade went to ask him for the art, he went back and watched Power Rangers, and he was like, this is not as awesome as I remember it being, and it's on Netflix. So we
Yeah.
we watched it right this past summer, and oh boy, it's not as awesome as you remember it being. Um, but I guess story is that he went back to Renegade and said, "Can I draw it as awesome? Can I not do like true to form Power Rangers? Can I do like what my vision of it was as a kid?"
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and that's how he ended up doing the artwork for it. Because you go back and watch it now, and it's like, what were we thinking? It was oh my God, it was like 90s denim and just corny jokes and not great fight scenes too.
Yeah,
Yeah. So maybe you and your brother are gonna have to go back and watch it now
yeah.
as adults.
As long as we get to fight after we're done. No, it's fine.
Yes. Yes. How about you, Roy? What have you liked this year?
Oh man, what have I liked the most? There's been so many good games, and now my mind is dying.
Same
Listen, I'm
thing.
supposed to be
Yeah.
interviewing you. No, I'm with you on Journeys to Middle Earth. I really enjoyed that a lot. I played Clank Legacy, and oh my goodness, Clank Legacy was amazing. Um,
Okay.
it adds like the Pity Arcade's like D&D like story feel. I love these games that have like lots of narrative and story, and I love like you can go to certain locations and then read out of this book. There's some amazing games that do that, like Near and Far sort of does that. And I mean, was it Tales of the Arabian Nights is all about like reading out of a book and stuff like that and letting you make choices. Like more games, like give me storybook and choices. I'm sure like not as many games do it just because it's a really hard thing to put together. Lots of writing. But as a librarian, you should be like telling everybody to put more narrative in their games.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that I liked about Abomination, that it did have that storytelling
Oh yeah,
aspect
yeah.
and parts in it. Um, yeah, and I've never played Near and Far. Oops.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
We
fun.
had we had Tales of the Arabian Nights and had it and had it and had it and played it and played it and played it, and we sold it this past year.
Yeah, it's
I don't
really
know.
silly, but
It is, and we had kind of done like the shut up and sit down method of, if you've seen their review of Tales
yeah,
of the
yeah.
Arabian Nights, where they were like, when enter is an option, you choose enter. We had it can be so silly too, and you're
hmm
just yeah,
It's one of those games that you have to not take seriously, and you treat it more like as an activity than a specific game that you're trying to win. You know, you're just along for the ride to see what happens to your character as you go along. But we've always had fun with it, just seeing the craziness that comes out of it.
yeah. Same thing with Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. That has
hmm
been a fun one. Um, and you always think that you're going to be just as smart as Sherlock, and then you go, oh, you silly fool, you. You're never as smart as Sherlock, ever,
Oh,
ever,
for
ever,
sure.
ever.
I did get a chance to play
Um,
Aftermath. I only played one scenario of it, but that is Plaid Hat's new storybook game. But it's like post-apocalyptic animals, sort of like Mice and Mystics, but like Mice and Mystics was fantasy. This is like post-apocalyptic. All the humans have disappeared, and it's been left to the pets that had to break out of the pet store to run everything. And it's pretty cool because it's like it's scenario based, so I haven't really got a full taste of the game, but you're trying to like go out and scavenge and find food for your colony, and like your colony's like boarded up in an abandoned house, and you're trying to figure out how to help all these little animals survive as you go out on different quests, also while trying to figure out what happened to the other providers that were there before you. And it seems like it'll be a really intriguing story, and maybe there'll be hints of like what happened to the humans, because apparently the humans just went up and Thanos snapped away. They just all disappeared. So, like, literally, it's like they were left in dust. And I'm like, is this a Thanos scenario? Is this in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
oh, I know. Roy and I were joking beforehand about Marvel versus DC, because as you can see behind me, I'm a DC girl back here.
Yeah, yeah. And you even have a very Wonder Woman-ish logo and stuff like that for Board Game Librarian. I know you're a huge DC fan.
It's okay. We can get along. It's cool. It's
I would
cool.
love for DC to come out with some. I mean, I know Wonder Woman was like one of their best movies. I'd love to see some amazing DC movies because I mean, honestly, Marvel, DC, whatever, doesn't matter. I just want awesome
Yeah.
action and awesome story. You know, all the movies that about comic book characters. So this makes me sad that a lot of the DC ones haven't been as highly rated. So
Yeah, it has been too bad. We did see Joker a couple weeks ago,
oh yeah,
which
people really
was
like that. Apparently, I haven't seen it.
it was like deeply upsetting, and I don't know, like brilliant at the same time too. So you could take that as you will. Um, my husband kind of likened it to The Shining, like same thing, very unsettling, um, but, like brilliant. So,
Hmm.
and Joaquin Phoenix was amazing. Like you don't even remember Heath Ledger at all. You're like, who's that? Who cares about Heath Ledger?
Ah. Nice. Well, maybe I have to see it as long as I'm in a good enough mood to make it out of the movie.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely not kid appropriate. Um, But cool. It was cool. Yeah.
Nice. Is there a DC themed board game that you really like? Or are you still searching for one?
I'm still searching for one. God, I still have DC Deck Builder in our collection. Like total soft spot in there. I know people really hate on it. But we got Rebirth at Gen Con, and it's pretty solid. It's
Nice.
not like it's the best thing ever, but if you're a fan of the universe, it's probably the best DC game that's out there. I know some people have had like mixed feelings on the Batman game.
I think people had mixed feelings on the rules for the Batman game and the iconography because it was intense. But that whole like river system, like I love like the mechanics of the Batman game. Have you played it?
So my husband played it, and he said the same thing. Like the ambiguity of some of the rules was really frustrating for him. But he would maybe try it again. A friend of ours has it. So
I think for me it helped because I had played Conan several times before, and it's got like the same mechanics as Conan. It was just like the fact that every character has a whole bunch of abilities, and you have these little icons that you have to figure out for the abilities, and it's just like ah. But other than that, it's still cool just the way that they make like this action running around punching game feel Euro-y as you're like trying to figure out how to use your crystals the best and which characters are you going to activate, and you don't want to overspend or you're going to get exhausted sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for a good like DC board game. I would love a good Wonder Woman game. Hint, hint, someone, please.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I always played a ton of HeroClix growing up, and HeroClix is like DC. They have like every IP on it almost, but they have DC and Marvel are like the two big IPs that they have on it. Like every other set, it's like Marvel set, DC set, Marvel set, DC set, and there's a ton of like good stuff. And playing with Wonder Woman and Batman and Superman, oh my goodness, Superman's so OP in that game all the time, but it's still ridiculous. But we used to have like giant battle royales with all these different characters, and it was always fun.
Oh yeah, and there was always Dice Masters still too, so you can do that.
One of my favorite memories of playing HeroClix was one of my friends was playing Superman. That was his whole team. We all had teams of like a whole bunch of different characters and all sorts of different people. But Superman was so many points in that game. It's like a miniatures game. I'm sure you know from like other games. It's like, holy smokes, it takes a bunch of points to have like really good characters. Superman was his whole team. And like one of my friends always played Captain America. So Captain America walks across the corner and Superman comes up and just like pulverizes Captain America in one hit. Like smashes him up against a wall, and there's just like a smear where Captain America used to be. It's like... that's probably how it actually go. Superman's just too good.
Probably.
OP.
Who is your favorite superhero though, Roy?
Oh man, I don't know. I like Star-Lord a lot. Is that insane to say?
No.
Star-Lord's funny. I don't know if I like Chris Pratt or if I like Star-Lord, but that character is hilarious, and I love the whole like star guy jumping around and doing all sorts of bounties and stuff like that. Seems kind of crazy as a superhero. I mean, obviously yours is Wonder Woman.
But yeah, Captain Obvious, I guess, right? Since I talk about it so much. I don't know. I think when I found out the Batgirl was also a librarian, I think my mind exploded.
Oh, yeah.
And I went, what? Barbara Gordon! You're my spirit animal!
Is that gonna break you of your Wonder Woman love?
I don't know.
You'd have to completely rebrand yourself if you're gonna go Batwoman. It would almost feel like it was a fake.
Yeah, I would have to. I'd have to dye my hair like red instead. And I got the whole tall Amazon thing going on anyway, so it's okay.
And then you'd have to like start sleeping upside down because bats and stuff.
Yes. Being night owl.
Are there any conventions you're going to be going to in this upcoming year that people can look at you and try to see you at? Are you going to be demoing with more publishers or hanging out with other people or hanging out with the Dice Tower or anything crazy like that?
We're not going to PAX U this year, which we're sad about. We'd gone
Ah.
there the first year, and it was
Mhm.
so awesome. I loved PAX U.
Oh yeah, it's
Uh,
awesome.
just like super low key and had that nice balance of like shopping and playing games too. And I
Hmm.
like Philadelphia a lot.
Oh, for sure.
Um, but it's not a great weekend. My husband has a concert that he has to do. I feel like the only one that we really get out to now is Gen Con.
That one's so big, and it's so hard to talk to people and hang out with people at Gen Con.
It is. It is. I don't know. Every year we're like, Origins? Do we want to do Origins? Um, I'd love to do Dice Tower Con in July, but that's a tough time of year at work.
Hmm.
Yeah, I know. I'm so boring over here.
You
Don't
got to
make it
make it
out
to
to
one
my
of the
life.
Dice Tower cons because that's the conventions where like people actually have time to play games like that, and like Board Game Geek Con and cons like that are more like these are the cons not about just like shopping, it's about like playing all the games, and there's like giant board game libraries and people can play games and just like hang out and interact with people. I think that's my favorite part about conventions anyway. Maybe I'd like the shopping part more if I was actually able to do shopping. My relationship with board games in general is weird these days because, you know, since I work at the Dice Tower, it's like it's always games all the time.
It is.
So it's like, and I kind of have access to any game I would ever want to. So do I really need to buy games from a booth? I'm probably too broke for that. So
Yeah, I get you on that. No, so I don't know. Like Carnage was this past weekend up in Vermont, and
oh, gotcha.
that's not so far for us. Yeah, my husband is a minister of music at a church
Oh, gotcha.
here in the town that we live in, so weekends are always tough.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and he only gets a certain amount of weekends off per year. And we always try to like fit in a weekend for vacation for us that isn't board game related.
Hmm.
But yeah, I know.
Are weekends like a big deal at the libraries too, I'm guessing?
They can be. Like the board game group that I run at the library is um that's always on a Saturday.
Hmm.
Saturdays can be really nuts, depending on like if we have a kids program in the morning and if we have an adult program in the afternoon. A couple weeks ago, we have in the community I work in like this huge downtown trick or treating,
Hmm.
and we had a magician come in for the kids, and it was like 150 people packed in this room with the, and it was just mayhem. Like that's a good kind of mayhem though, like excited kids. Um, yeah, Fridays can be dead as a doornail though.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you run game nights and things like that at your library there. Do you have any advice for like if someone wanted to get board games started at their library, or even just like a board game meetup at a library? Any tips or tricks?
Oh, so I think timing and time is always like really important when you're
Hmm.
doing it. Um, we had started off doing a couple of hours on a Saturday, and it became like really clear that people wanted a longer period of time.
Yeah.
And in a lot of communities, not just in America, but across the world too, like they don't have an FLGS in their community, but most
Yeah.
places
Yeah.
have a library. Um, so in my particular community, like we already had this built-in game game community.
Hmm.
Um, but it that was one of my tips that I say to everyone, like a couple of hours for adults isn't necessarily long enough because like if you bring like Scythe and you get a full player count of Scythe, it's going to take more than 2 hours to
Right.
play that. Um, I think just really, if you're not a librarian, if you're a patron and you want to start one, I think really working with someone and understanding the community, picking the
Hmm.
right day of the week, picking the right time, and like setting your expectations appropriately too,
Hmm.
that you're not necessarily going to get everyone who is going to want to play like the big stuff,
Right.
um,
Right.
and having a variety of stuff for people to play. Um, and just being like opening and welcoming and like making everyone feel happy and safe too, I think is like huge.
Yeah, yeah. That's all very important for like any sort of meetup of board games you're trying to make happen. Um,
Oh, absolutely.
I wonder how hard it is to like get buy-in from like a librarian that has no clue about board games or like a library system that doesn't know. Because I know they have a board game meetup in Miami at one of the libraries, and I'm like, man, I should really go at least once to see how it is. Because I saw people playing like miniatures games and stuff there. I'm like, what? Miniatures games at the library? That's crazy. So, and somebody was like, hey, I'm bringing Dune to the library. Who wants to play Dune? And I'm like, hey, that's based off a book. That's thematic. But,
Yep. We just got Dune, and I'm really excited to try to play it too. The fact that they reprinted it, I've been like,
mhm.
yay! Um, yeah, I think it's easier when there's someone on staff who is a gamer.
And
Um,
understands.
yeah, and understands. I think there's a lot of really like well-intentioned
Mhm.
librarians out there who are like, gaming is awesome. We need to get more of this going. We need to get like all ages going. But when they don't understand, like when you're circulating board games that you want to count every single one of them when they come back, they'll go, oh, we're just gonna put it right back on the shelf. Like you and I know the importance of like a missing card
Yeah,
or
yeah.
missing pieces. But for someone who isn't a gamer and doesn't see that, that's harder. Um,
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, I don't remember what we're talking about. Oh, just like libraries and getting people on board for having your events there.
yeah, I think I get a lot of calls about this, and to me, one of the biggest things that would be helpful if I was a librarian
Hmm.
who was not a gamer would be if someone came in with like an action plan and
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
I want to meet once a month on a Saturday for 4 hours. We are going to be for all ages,
Hmm.
and I'm going to have people who are going to teach games. These are the like here's our first month of stuff that we would like to teach. We're
Hmm.
going to bring in our own games. All we would need would be the space and maybe some snacks that the library would provide. And that to me is like a wonderful opportunity for
Hmm.
people to work together. It's a library sponsored event. Um, some you can also like team up with your FLGS if you have one close by, like we did, and
Hmm.
have it really just be like, really cross pollinating too. Um, but it takes time in some communities. And sometimes some places only get a couple of people. Sometimes they get so many people, they don't have room for them. Um, we're really understanding and knowing your community. That's like
Hmm.
one thing that they teach us in library school is know your community.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. And I'm
yeah.
sure you can always like push like the benefits of board games being like, hey, these are great for bringing communities together. Like basically all board games are in some way educational. It's like no matter which game you're playing, you're learning about like odds in games, or learning about pressing your luck, or learning about economics, or how to manage resources, or learning about the math behind this thing, or even just learning different things. And the games that are based on books and stuff like that, it's easy to like be like, hey, there's this game and this game and this game that match up with these books. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you can spin it and make it maybe exciting or interesting, and show people ways they maybe didn't think about board games before, when they're just like, oh, that's a kid's toy, like Monopoly, paper money, like whatever. What are kids going
Yeah.
to learn from that?
And that's one of the things that I love doing when I'll sometimes see like a family standing in front of like my wall of
Mm-hmm.
games, and the parents are like, and they, and the kids are, randomly pulling stuff off and I love doing the,
Mm-hmm.
how many players have you guys played modern games before? What do you like playing together? It's one of those wonderful things of like educating parents
Mm-hmm.
too, especially on, this one is really great for creativity and thinking outside the box. This
Mm-hmm.
one has great storytelling aspects. This one helps your child think spatially. This one works on hand-eye coordination. Um, like those are really great opportunities too.
Mm-hmm.
And with libraries moving more and more towards like community centers, um, being able to offer these free of charge, where, sometimes you would go into a board game cafe or an FLGS and maybe
Yeah.
you have to pay to play.
Hmm.
Um, it's a great community service.
Hmm. I'm sure it can expose gaming and that community to people that wouldn't necessarily be able to afford it or just wouldn't be able to learn about it any other way. It's like, oh, I walked in here to pick up a book for my kid's book report or something like that, and hey, there's these board games here. Maybe we can play this together as a family. That would be a win-win.
It is, and in the community that I work in too, there are some areas where 42% of a neighborhood lives below poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So they can hardly afford to put food on their table. So, for them to go out and buy a $50 board game is beyond like any expectation, but they can come into the library, they can have access to all of this stuff, and provide some free entertainment too.
Mm-hmm.
That is really meaningful to me that
Mm-hmm.
we can provide that. I like, FLGSs are great and I never would knock them of sorts, but a lot of times they're already catering to like a crowd that they have already, right? It's
Right.
already like the built-in gamer crowd.
Right.
What's awesome about libraries and gaming is that like the amount of new people that we often bring in
Mm-hmm.
is huge. There's no pressure to buy anything.
Right.
You can take it home and try it before you buy it. You can play your first modern board game. It's like modern strategy board game.
Mm-hmm.
So those have all been like really good positives to me. And it's been a joy. It's like, that's super corny to say, Roy. That's so corny.
I know, but I think it's really cool though, because it's like I mean, game stores overall, I mean, they need to stay in business, so they need to really like sell games to people. So maybe they might be even pitching games. They're just kind of like, we just need this off the shelf, sort of thing. Where at a library, if you're pitching a game to somebody, it's like, no, you're trying to find the game that's going to best suit them, and like be like, hey, this would be great for you to have to help build your relationships with your family, or just come together at a table and spend time together. Because I mean, I remember growing up playing games with my mom and dad was like a huge part of stuff. I mean, my dad was a huge gamer and like loved all sorts of games. I mean, that's probably why I turned out the way I did. But I'm sure everybody has those memories of playing some sort of game with different family members, and it just brings people together, and I think in a great way.
Yeah, and across age boundaries, across,
Mm-hmm.
Across many different boundaries. That's again one of the wonderful thing about gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Truly.
And
You
these
can play
days,
online with people.
everybody's all separate on their phones here and there, and not paying attention. But like when you play a game, you're all learning it together and sitting there face to face. And a lot of games have like lots of interactions, and you're trying to either cooperatively figure out this thing or competitively figure out how to get an edge and be slightly smarter than the other players. I don't know. There's lots of interesting dynamics there that can build lots of cool relationships.
Yeah, that's for one of my biggest sells for parents is you're not on your phone, you're not in front
Mm-hmm.
of a computer screen, that you're spending quality time together. And life really is about the experiences that we have with each other, together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the coming to a table and enjoying our time together, learning about each other's day, learning something new. And those are things that that technology sometimes can't provide. It can be great.
Do you do anything specific to try to like ease the barrier of entry to new people, like with rules, or do you like tell people about, oh, there's a video online for this or anything, or try to help people figure out how to easily get in, or do you just point people mostly to gateway games if they have no idea what's going on with these board games?
So I do point them to gateway games a lot, but I do try to point them to YouTube. I'll be like,
Mm-hmm.
Google Sushi Go. There's some really great, how to play videos on there. I'll sometimes say the Dice Tower. And one of the things to me that's so interesting too is like, I think being in the hobby, being a reviewer, being
Hmm.
like, you know, into all that stuff, we lose track sometimes in terms of like the wider population
Yeah,
that
for sure.
we we consume this stuff, but like a lot of the average people don't.
Hmm.
Um, we get really caught up in like all of that stuff. And sometimes, if I think there's someone who is like really into board games, like my dominant species kind of people, the
Yeah, yeah.
hardcore people, I'll say like BGG or the Dice Tower or whatever else. And a lot of times they're like, what? What is
Hmm.
BGG? And again, these things that you and I are like, oh
Hmm.
yeah, we use BGG all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
But just these other resources that a lot of people either don't know of or don't ever use. Um, that's been a really interesting phenomena that I've seen. Um, yeah.
You'll be really cool. I mean, I feel like one of the biggest things for like the hobby is like it's hard to get people from zero to being able to pick up a game. Most everybody is taught a game by other people, and that's how they get into board gaming. I mean, I know I was taught majority of the games, and everybody enjoys being taught the game instead of having to dig through the rule book. It's so hard to learn these games, especially when like so much of it has like I've seen plenty of rule books that almost expect you to be a board gamer already when you're reading it. And it's like, oh, like I don't know what worker placement is or drafting is, and you have to be, as a rule book writer, you have to be very careful about teaching it from ground zero of like, if someone picked up this game who has never played a board game before, oh man, that's a big task, to try to get somebody. And I mean, the more games you play, the easier it gets because you start seeing similarities in games and seeing all the same mechanics used in this and that, and like, oh, this does this, kind of like that game. It makes it much easier. But like when you're coming at it cold, or like if your family didn't grow up playing board games, or all you've really played is like a couple games like Monopoly and Sorry and stuff, or Uno, it's like it's really hard to get people in there. And it would be awesome to see more ways that the hobby in general could help lower that barrier of entry.
I think too, like even when you're teaching games to people and
Mm-hmm.
it's a group of people that you've never met before,
Yeah.
like the terms that you're using,
Oh, for
again,
sure.
just like you were saying, like, you know, some people at your table may not know what a deck builder is. They may have never heard of that before, but they sat down because they like playing cards and they liked, the theme,
Mm-hmm.
that was on the box. Um, so, or, something is like tableau building or any of those other kind of terms that you and I are familiar with. Again, to me, your average people may have no idea what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's like even something on our end that we can be mindful of.
And I'm
Um,
sure, like, I mean, there's an art to teaching board games as well. I'm sure from demoing, it's like the first time you demoed a game, it's just like, oh my goodness. But by the end of a con, you're like, I can teach this game backwards and forwards. I'm sure you're like, I know how to talk about this game and make it click and know exactly what to say to like people be like, okay, yeah, I understand this. I know what's going on. And it's really interesting to like have a game that you've played over and over again. It's like, I know how to teach this game. So that's fun.
oh yeah, that's absolutely, especially when I'm teaching at the library, I joke with the people who come, like, you never want to get me on a first teach. You want to get me on like the second teach
Yeah.
because, I've gotten my groove, I've made some connections. I'm not fumbling through a rule book too. I'm making sure.
Oh, for sure.
Um, but yeah, there's such an art to teaching board games too. And yeah, it's so much practice and knowing your stuff too, and
Mm-hmm.
anticipating questions that people have. Um, I would never say that I'm great at teaching a board game. Never.
I think I'm pretty good at certain ones. Like I've got Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea down packed. I was about to say I could probably teach Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea with the best of them. I would say I could probably teach it better than Gameland Games, but they'd probably agree with me. But I play that game a lot. Um,
That's another one I keep saying. Rye, rye.
well, that one would be easier to get to play because it's not necessarily 4 hours, like whatever. And I play that at all the conventions every time anyway. You just got to come to these gaming conventions, Jen. You
I
keep going to like
know.
Gen Con. Like a Gen Con, all I can do
Ugh,
is say, "Hey, bye." so hard to play a game.
We've definitely done that to each other. Hey, bye.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I wish I could stay. We're going to do this thing. And you're like, I'm going to go do that thing. Yeah, okay. Awesome. Well, cool. Well, I think we've pretty much wrapped up an hour here. So if people don't know where to find your stuff, Jenn, or if there's anything you'd like to shout out, let people know now.
Oh, cool. I'm on Instagram, boardgame.librarian.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on Twitter, boardgamelibra1. I like to be smooshed. And I have a fledgling little YouTube channel with my husband and two of our friends called For Board, as in like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. For Board Gamers. So we're doing some things, making stuff happen.
Nice. And I'm sure we'll see you around on random Dice Tower videos, board game breakfasts, favorite game Fridays here and there. All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I'm a lurker.
You're a lurker. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us for this episode of Spaces Between. Thanks so much to Jenn for joining me on this as well. If you want to check out Spaces Between, make sure to check it out on iTunes. We now have the audio for all of these podcasts. You can listen to a bunch of the amazing guests that have come on the show. You can check it out. Just search Spaces Between on iTunes or any of your other podcasting platforms. You can find Spaces Between there. And then also these stream in the Dice Tower group on Monday nights, and then the following Monday they are posted to the Dice Tower channel. But thanks everybody. Make sure to comment below, tell us what you thought about the program, and thanks again, Jenn, for coming on.
Thanks, Roy. You're the best.
Awesome. Well, we'll see everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching another Dice Tower video. If you enjoy our videos, subscribe to the channel for more fun, comprehensive board game coverage. Also, consider joining us at one of our events. Come to Dice Tower Retreat, a small, intimate gathering where gaming is king. Join us for Dice Tower Cruise, the largest board game cruise. Attend Dice Tower West in Las Vegas for gaming fun on the West Coast, or Dice Tower East in Orlando in sunny Florida. Dice Tower Conventions, the friendliest gaming conventions on Earth. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.